Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of TNT, the Twisted New Testament, or Judaism and Christianity, a contrast with Rabbi Stuart, the man Federow from the Big H, Houston, Texas. Welcome back. Tell me you were waiting for it.
Thank you.
You were waiting for me to finish that statement, weren't you? It's been a long time.
Yes, I was. See how you trained me?
I did. Oh, we got to get my camera engaged there. That's funny. Good deal. Yeah, it's been a long time, hasn't it? Probably, 24 hours or so.
At least, what about
36
10 hours, something like that?
Something like that. Nice. All right, so tonight's topic is going to be, they are not real Christians. And there's so many different angles that we're going to try to cover on this because, to be honest with you, whenever you and I were speaking on the phone, Rabbi, I was thinking you were going somewhere else because it's such an open window of a topic, which is good.
Well, that is good
because
it comes up in a lot of conversations that I've had with missionaries. I just had a recent one with a gentleman, I use the term loosely, who spent an hour and 40 minutes on the phone with me trying to convert me to Christianity. One of the things that he used to prove Christianity is look at all the Jews who are becoming believers in Jesus. And he said, I know 100 Jews who are now believers. And of course I said, well, I know 100 people who are now ex-Christians and now they're Jewish.
Right. The really awkward part about that is they say that, but they don't. They have they may know one or two people. There's no hundreds there at all.
No. But
in fact, I've cross-referenced so many.
They'll read them online.
Yeah. But even
somebody who's now Messianic will say, well, I was raised an Orthodox Jew. I was raised this. I was raised that. And anytime I run across something like that, and I look them up and I Google search them, and especially if they say what supposed synagogue they were members of, I will call up that synagogue.
Yeah, right.
And say, hey, I heard about this guy's name, and they've never even heard the family name.
Right.
They never heard of them before.
Yeah.
So
they're doing like Paul taught, I become all things to all man. So that's by His grace, at least one might be saved, and that's what they do. They will make up stories to try to convince you. So that's just how it is.
And when this comes up, and I tell them about all the people who convert to Judaism, or who abandon their Christianity, or, which is another side of the same coin, I talk about, there was a very famous Jew who once said that a tree shall be known by its fruit. And if I take a look at the fruit of the Christian religion over the past 2,024 years, it's not a very good history.
Right.
And the answer they give for all of this is, but they're not real Christians.
Right. They must have never been saved to begin with.
They weren't really saved.
Right.
They weren't really Christian. They weren't really educated in Christianity. They were never converted. They never proclaimed Christ. They never, it's always the same thing.
Right. There is a situation that with the family that I know of who were Christian years ago. Went Messianic and then went into the Noahide or the Torah Judaism, putting behind the New Testament altogether. And then as they were following Torah, the younger kids started growing up, but they didn't teach the younger kids counter-missionary work. They didn't teach them about the New Testament. And the problem with that is, a lot of people say you should never teach your kid the New Testament. Well, I completely differ with you on that, big time.
Well, but it's like anything else. It's how you teach it.
Well, yeah, right. So with this particular family, there had the unfortunate situation of a divorce that took place. The father stayed in his faith, but the wife and the kids went back to Christianity. And my daughter's like, how is that even possible? That especially the kids got so super Christianized, and oftentimes it's because as the children are growing up, they're never taught, and then whenever they're approached by Christians, they're just as vulnerable as the Jewish people are, who have never learned that what's against it. So.
In those instances, William, there's other elements that are taking place, and that is they just got divorced, they lost a parent, they're feeling alone, they're feeling lonely, and all of a sudden they get the friendship and family feelings of being in a church.
Right.
And even though in their heart of hearts, in their intellectual, in their head, they know that Jesus cannot die for your sin. Yeah. They're willing to set all that they learned aside
Right.
because because they need the fellowship, they need the love, they need the belonging.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, the part that I'm talking about is where the younger kids who were growing up, who actually are believing in the New Testament. The mother clearly is not, because she already knew. But the kids, for example, where they were like, 11, 12 years old, whatever, and now they're like 17, 18 years old, have gotten back involved with the church, and they're
because there's probably nothing else for them to get involved with.
But the point is like that they're not. They will post things like, I dropped something on my toe and it started bleeding, so I pled the blood of Jesus over it as a Facebook post. They're not going to do that if they don't believe in Jesus.
No, I'm not saying they don't believe.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that the reason they have reverted to Christianity is for all sorts of psychiatric, emotional...
Yeah, agreed. Which is why people usually get saved to begin with, is because of emotional connection. Yeah.
Now, this is not an easy way to explain things, but my response to this, well, they're not real Christian. There are two responses that I have to this, okay? One of them, I tell them, let's say the guy's name is Jim, which it was. So Jim tells me that these people who have converted to Judaism abandon their Jesus, learn the truth, and come either to B'nai Noach or they come to Judaism, fully convert to Judaism. Well, they didn't really know anything. They really were, they weren't really Christian. So I will tell Jim, you say that you're a Christian, just like they say they're a Christian. If I'm supposed to believe you about them, should I believe them about you? Yeah. So there are really no Christians anywhere. Because for every Christian named A, there's a Christian B who's telling me the Christian A really isn't a Christian. So if I have to believe everybody's opinion about everybody else, there are no real Christians in the world. Because there's somebody somewhere who will say, oh, they're not a real Christian.
Right.
Like the Pope, he's not really a Christian. A Catholic, he's not really a good Christian.
We had a Catholic conversation this weekend about how so many people that I've talked to in the years past, they would say, oh, well, you mentioned Catholic, and they're like, oh, God, no way, we're not Catholic at all. I'm like, do you realize that your church came from the Catholic Church? every one of your churches came from the Catholic Church. So a
very simple way to prove that. What day of the week is your Sabbath?
Yeah, right, that's true.
If they say Sunday,
that
is actually it's a misrepresentation of Roman Catholicism.
Right. But
if they say Sunday, they're derived from Catholicism.
Yep, that's insane. So
there is a fallacy in debate called the not a real Scotsman fallacy. Okay. And that is perfectly what's operating here. So let's say that you've got a guy named Hamish MacDonald. That's his name. A very Scottish name. Okay. And somebody says about Scotsmen that nobody puts sugar on their porridge. If you're a Scotsman, no real Scotsman puts sugar on his porridge.
Right.
Okay. So you say, but my friend Hamish MacDonald, he's born and raised in Scotland. He loves to have sugar on his porridge. And they'll say, oh, but he's not a true Scotsman because all Scotsmen don't put sugar on their porridge. On their porridge. So they're taking the definition of the word Scotsman, being somebody, from Scotland, and they are redefining it to say not put sugar on porridge. In other words, that's what these Christians, these Messianics do with the word Christian. What does the word Christian mean? A Christian is someone who believes in Jesus as the Christ. That's the definition of a Christian. Somebody who believes in Jesus as the Christ, as the Messiah, as the Savior, as the Son of God. Okay, or some combination, permutation of those things. They believe in Jesus is what it amounts to.
Right.
If I say to them, look at all the if a famous Jew said that a tree shall be known by its fruits, and the fruit of Christianity is, I don't know, the pogroms, the Holocaust, the Crusades, where they go through Jewish towns and wipe them out, burning Jews at the stake, the Inquisition, whatever, and they say, oh, they're not real Christians. Now they're taking the definition of the word Christian and redefining it to mean somebody who's totally, completely morally ethical.
Right, right.
So they're changing the goalposts. They're moving the goalposts. Instead of merely somebody who believes in Jesus as the Christ is the definition of Christian, they are now changing that definition to be someone who is morally upright. So if they're not morally upright, oh, well, they're not really a Christian.
Right.
And it's a fallacy. It's like saying somebody named Hamish whatever it was, McPherson, isn't a real Scotsman because he likes sugar on his porridge, and real Scotsmen wouldn't do that.
One thing that I love is when I'm talking to Christians and telling them testimonial scenarios that I've had on my show. And like a pastor who was a pastor for 36 years, and he left the New Testament behind, and now he's following Torah Judaism. And other Christians will say, well, he must have never been saved to begin with, otherwise he would have never left. That just cracks me up. I mean, they say that about me too. They say, well, you must have never really been saved. I said, dude, I've spoken in tongues. I've experienced all that stuff. At what point can you say somebody was truly a Christian? After they die? I mean, because really that's kind of what they're ruling out or trying to rule in, is a scenario that's just it's just a fail-safe for them. Okay, so I've got the phone lines open, guys. You guys feel free to call in. We can still...
Before we move on...
Sure. You want to read a few of your comments that you had from the guy?
Well, Razel at 8:22 p.m. writes, what if these believers just believe because they were grown into the faith and don't actually know a thing about the New Testament or TaNaCh? The answer is, they may be a secular form, a non-religious form of Christian, but they're still a Christian. They may only believe because they were grown up in that faith, but they still believe in that faith.
Yeah.
So they're still Christians, even if it's a less knowledgeable form of it or less knowledgeable people who are following it. They're still following it.
Right.
It's but the idea to say that just because they're not acting in accordance with what one Christian believes they should act means they're not really a Christian doesn't work. It's not a defense.
Let's see. I've got a question that came in. Got a caller. Actually, let me catch that. Okay, so what about the name and not being known?
Spectral Chord at 8:23 p.m. writes in the chat, there's a Hebrew word that means my Lord or Lord of all lords. It is the plural of the word Adon, which means Lord or Master. In the synagogue ritual, that word is used as a replacement. And he's right, but I just need to correct one little thing. That word is not the plural of the word Adon. It is the plural possession of the word Adon. Adon does, he's right, mean Lord or Master, like in the Shakespearean English, lords and ladies, because that's how old that word is. Okay, in English, Lord. And then the word Adon is the same word as master, which is the same word as Mr. And even in modern Hebrew, Mr. Hall is Adon Hall. Okay, Adon Federow. Mr. and Master are very much related, and it's the same thing in the Hebrew. Adon is how you say, like Mr. Okay, but it's plural possession, and he has that. It says my Lord or Lord of all lords. I'm not sure about Lord of all lords, but anyway, that's a comment I wanted to make on his chat.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. And so, and also just a footnote for people who are watching right now. I usually say this at the end of the video, but then I realize a lot of people won't see this when they go back to watch this, because as we will finish this video right around about 9:15 p.m. Central Time. Once it's done, this video will be set to members only to give me time to edit and to fix things like the issues we had tonight. But a lot of people don't want to wait. They want to watch it right away, and they don't care about the things that need to be edited out. And they also don't want to watch my videos with ads or anything like that. So if you guys are in that category, you have to join YouTube, and this is not something I can do for you. You have to do it on your own through YouTube. It's their thing, not mine. It's just something I can enable to give you immediate access to my content. So you have to go in and join the channel, not just subscribe. You have to join the channel. It's like for $4.99 a month. It's something I've got everything set to the cheapest amount, so everybody can watch it if you join. But again, I can't do that for you. You have to do it yourself. Even if you're already donating through PayPal or Patreon, I still can't do it. It's a YouTube thing. So anyway, after that being said, this video should come out on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. and it's Monday night now, so about 48 hours. So, okay, we're going to go and take this caller. Caller, you are live. Go ahead with your question.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes, my question for the rabbi is this. What do you think about the mark of the beast, Revelations, and the end times, and the Antichrist that Christians talk about? What's your opinion on that? That's my question.
Okay, go ahead and hang up now, Tony, for your answer. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
You bet. All right, Rabbi.
Yeah, I kind of don't think he's going to like my answer. Okay. First of all, that's all based on one interpretation, not every Christian interpretation, but one Christian interpretation of the book of Revelation. Not my Bible, not Holy Writ, not divine, not inspired, not from God. It's New Testament. It's NT, not a testament. So to me, it's silly and ridiculous and what's the word? Simply an interpretation and nothing more. And as I've said repeatedly, every human being on planet Earth is very free to take any verse they want from any Bible or any scripture of any religion and interpret it in any way they want to interpret it. And all you'll have is somebody else who will say, I disagree with your interpretation. So that's it. Not all Christians believe in a rapture and different elements of the end of what Christianity has as their end of days scenarios. So I don't think much of it. It's not my Bible. It's not Holy Writ. It's irrelevant to me. It's like people who will say, and you'll hear this a billion times, right now we're in the end of days. Everything in the New Testament is coming true, and Jesus is about to come back. And if you look at history, the early 1900s, early 1800s, early 1700s, early 1600s, you had this fervor that any year ending in 00 is going to bring about the end of days and the return of Jesus to the world. And usually, not usually, but every time, what happens is that the world moves, okay, time passes, Jesus hasn't returned, and whose fault is that? It's the Jews' fault, and anti-Semitism rises and goes through the roof. So you got the same kind of thing now, okay, with Christians think, oh, it's the end of days, here it comes, the Messiah's coming. And what happens when the Messiah doesn't come? When Jesus doesn't come? You have people getting disaffected with all religion and hating God because what they had hoped was going to happen, what they believed that was going to happen, didn't happen.
And then you have the diehard ones that say, well, the rapture was supposed to happen on this eclipse, and now they're just recalculating. They'll find another date. They'll find another
exactly.
So.
And the reason why he didn't come at this eclipse is we were being tested. By the way, read a book called When Prophecy Fails, okay, a study by the University of Wisconsin or Michigan or one of those about religious groups and how they respond when they believe they have a prophecy and how they respond when the prophecy does not take place.
Right.
It's brilliant. And you may have heard the term cognitive dissonance.
Oh, yeah.
That's the study that created the concept of cognitive dissonance.
Okay, so did you conclude all of your topic about the mark of the beast?
About his question?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Oh, so how does the book of Revelation, who asked that? Somebody in chat asked, how does the book of Revelation, Paul Brill, line up with the Hebrew Scriptures? The only thing I could think of about the book of Revelation is, to me, it gave me the vibes of like Daniel or something like that.
The only thing I can think of is a lot of religions believe in a resurrection of the dead. A lot of religions believe in an additional judgment, a judgment at death, but a judgment, at the end of days. What order this happens in varies from from belief to belief, but they usually have basically the same elements in all religions. So, and to specify, how it is similar to Judaism, I'm not sure I could even do that.
Right. I do believe that whenever the Messiah does actually show up, the Christians are going to think he's the Antichrist.
Right.
I really do.
Because how convenient that they have described the Antichrist the way the Jews describe the real Messiah and what he's supposed to do.
Right.
How convenient for them.
Right.
That means they already have the precedent to say, well, you don't have the real Messiah, we have the real Messiah.
Right.
Okay, do we have a caller waiting for us?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, then I want to go to 8:34 p.m.
Okay.
8:34 p.m. from Jane Jones. Okay, and maybe she can respond to this, but Jane Jones writes at 8:34 p.m., Rabbi, have you heard of firstborn brought for being removed 7,000 times? Jane, I don't know what you mean by firstborn brought for being removed 7,000 times. Removed 7,000 times, I understand, but firstborn brought for? I don't know what that means.
I don't understand the 7,000 times. What is that all about?
I have no earthly idea.
Oh.
But what happens is that Christians believe that Jews really believe in Jesus and all that stuff. So in order to prevent other people from knowing the truth, we pervert the Bible.
Okay. We
don't really think it's holy. We change what's written, just to keep it hidden from, the truth hidden from, our own people or something like that. Nonsense. But I think Jane also wrote something about the et.
The Aleph Tav?
The et thing.
The Aleph Tav?
The Aleph Tav. I think that's what she was referring to, but I can't find where she said it.
Well, you can. We'll insert that as the next question then. So, because Christians, well, not really Christians, Messianics, which are Christians. So we'll call the Messianic denomination of Christians, like to say that the proof of one of the proofs of Jesus being all throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, they call the Old Testament, is every time you see the letters Aleph Tav, like et Adonai or et whatever. So it says two letters to Aleph and the Tav. I found that funny because that's the feminine version to talk to someone, as opposed to the masculine version. So maybe Mary was the Messiah, or should have been the Messiah. But can you comment on that?
Quickly, the word et in the Hebrew, which still exists in the Hebrew Scriptures, and it was not removed over 7,000 times, it's still there, but it doesn't get translated. If it got translated, you would wind up with, and they believe that it's really about Jesus, you would have to insert the word Jesus where the word et is found. So there are verses.
Oh, that's funny. I forgot about that. That's a good one.
There are verses where you have the word et, and if et is supposed to mean Jesus, then you got a problem. Okay. How about Genesis chapter 1, verse 1? Okay. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The word et shows that the next word or words is the object of the verb. So in the beginning, God created. What did God create? God created the heaven and the earth. So the word et has to precede the word heaven and the word earth. But if you think that's about Jesus, then you should translate it as, in the beginning, God created Jesus heaven and Jesus earth.
That's crazy.
If the word et is supposed to be, firstborn brought forth son, whatever that means, which it doesn't and never could, all it does is indicate that the next word is the object of the action of the verb.
Right.
All right. So I wish I could find a list, because I have this list somewhere, how the word et is found, but if you translate it as Jesus, it kind of says something exactly the opposite of what they'd like to have us believe about Jesus.
Sure. Sure.
And again, everybody is free to interpret any verse of the Bible any way they want, and all another person can say is, I don't agree with your interpretation, because it's interpretation.
Right.
So if they want to interpret et as being all, Jesus, and it got removed, it didn't get removed. It's still in the Hebrew. It's just nothing translatable. You don't translate the word et. There's no meaning to the word et except to indicate that the following word is the object of the verb. So, yeah.
Right. I was thinking about something. I was reading a comment that made me think of something in the New Testament where Jesus is complimenting Peter, I believe, on something because only God could have shown him this. And then, almost in the same breath, or at least in the next verse or two, it says, "Well, you guys so blind you can't see this?" I can't remember where it's at, though. I need to look that up because that would be worthy of a conversation.
People can argue about verses all they want, the proper interpretation of any verse. But if one person's interpretation contradicts another verse whose plain, simple, obvious, no spin, peshat, literal meaning contradicts their interpretation, then you have to ignore their interpretation. You have to deny the validity of their interpretation.
So good. So that just introduced the next question. And the next question is going to be, how do you respond to Christians and Messianics who want to go with the whole pardes, not party, P-A-R-D-E-S, which is actually Peshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. It's the Hebrew thing. The people who know what that is already know. They don't need explanation. But there are 4 levels of interpretation, and they will use that to say, well, this deeper meaning, the Drash level of this thing, really shows this really pointing to Jesus because it says it alludes to a human sacrifice or something like that. But not taking into consideration that there are rules of interpretation and that the way of understanding that violates that rule of interpretation. Can you kind of discuss that just a little bit?
It is no different than anything else. It's an interpretation, and anybody can interpret anything they want to in any way they want to. So if they want to interpret it that way, go have fun. But it is ludicrous. I don't know what else to tell you. Which was there a specific verse you were referring to?
No, just they again, as a form of damage control. When Christians realize that they can't, and I'm including Messianics in this, when they realize that they can't convince you of their point of view using just the text in the New Testament or the Hebrew Scriptures, then they'll go to, well, don't you know that the Talmud says this, or don't you know that the third level of interpretation?
But what they are doing is they are once again using Judaism against itself to make the claim that they're doing what Judaism does by interpreting it using the 4 ways to interpret.
Right.
Okay, and trying to use that process to prove Christianity when the most basic elements, foundational beliefs of Christianity are unbiblical at their base. Which, if you read the chat, okay, Christo just, is talking. Who's he talking to? I can't see who he's talking to. He's talking to Dance Puppet. Okay, one person cannot die for the sins of another. Exodus 32, 30 to 35, Deuteronomy 24, 16, Jeremiah 31, 29 to 30, Ezekiel 18, all of it. And he writes Psalm 146, but I think it's actually Psalm 49. And anyway, the point is that you can interpret anything you want to, but if their interpretation contradicts the basic meaning of a biblical verse, you have to reject their interpretation. No one can die for someone else's sins. And the same thing is true with what they want to do with the 4 levels of interpretation of Pardes.
Right.
They're going to use those to come up with the same conclusion, but their conclusion still remains unbiblical and more in line with dying, saving man gods of the Greco-Roman pagan idolatrous world. It's at 8:46 p.m., Dance Puppet. Except you believe that the righteous servant dies for the sins of the wicked on Isaiah 53. No,
not at all. So he commented again at 8:47.
The question is, 8:47 p.m. Dance Puppet. Except you believe that the righteous servant dies for the sins of the wicked on Isaiah 53. No. And the question is, 8:47 Don't you get sick and tired of the same old stuff?
Do I? No.
Oh,
No,
God,
not
I
at
do.
all. If it was with the same person, I would probably just
But
move
I
on.
guarantee you,
Yeah.
in the next 6 months, Dan's puppet will bring up Isaiah 53. No matter how well we show him that Isaiah 53 is about the Jewish people personified as the servant of God, and if October 7th of 2023 and the invasion of Hamas into Israel wasn't a perfect example of how the Jews are the servant of God who suffer at the hands of the non-Jewish nations,
Yeah.
and looking at the anti-Semitism that rose up as a result of that, once again, we Jews are proved to be the servant of God who suffers at the hands of the non-Jewish nations, exactly as Isaiah 53 described it.
Right.
But
Very true. Oh,
I guarantee you, give him 6 months, a year and a half, he'll bring it up again, and what we say will mean nothing to him.
all right. We have a caller on now. So, Dwayne, are you still with us there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey.
How's it going, Willie?
Hey, doing good. I got you in caller ID. Go ahead with your question.
Hey, Rabbi. I'm not sure if you hear me, but...
Yes, you can.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for having me on.
Sure.
Just a quick question here. I actually sat down with a pastor that I have been coached with in Christianity. To be fair, I had accepted Christ, let's say, about a year or so ago, and had some questions that just weren't really answered, so I started reading the Bible from, Genesis forward, and things didn't seem to add up with the New Testament. In my defense, I accepted it from the New Testament backwards, and I kind of got in line with listening to your radio station and whatnot, and it really helped me. Rabbi Federow, I love your Hebrew Jumpstart. Now, so let me get to a question. So I got into a discussion with my pastor, and I confronted him to tell him that, listen, I renounce Christianity, and I don't believe in Christ. I no longer accept him as my Lord and Savior, and I only hold to the Hebrew Scriptures. So we've gotten into a discussion now, and his defense was the whole seed, zera, and in it referring to as a single seed and not multiple. Now, I knew in that it was just, it's not true in that sense, wherein the way Christians are perpetuating the Hebrew Scriptures in the fact that they're using the term zera as not just multiple seed, but one seed to prove their point. What I'd like is just from Robert Federow's perspective, and how I can sort of rebut and provide a response to that as to, from a standpoint, what zera seed really means, and not just singular seed, but actually it refers to more than one seed.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and hang up now, and you can tune in for your answer, okay? Thank you for your call.
Awesome. Thank you.
You betcha. Bye-bye. All right, go ahead, Rabbi.
All right. First of all, the word seed in Hebrew operates exactly the same way the word seed operates in English. So that if seed in English can refer to progeny, okay, it can also do the same thing in Hebrew. I wish I had the steel trap brain of
what's the
Tovia Singer, but there are verses in the Hebrew Scriptures where it's also talking to the seed of woman, okay, and it's a specific woman, and clearly from the context you can see that it means, progeny, meaning all of the descendants, not just one person, okay. Let's see. Genesis 16, verse 10. Genesis chapter 16, verse 10. And the angel of the Eternal said to her, I will multiply your seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Clearly, the word seed, what can we say on this public place, is talking about spermatozoa. It's talking about progeny, descendants.
My dear friends, hope this message finds you well. If you like the way this channel is going, and the channel has been a blessing to you, please consider supporting the channel by going to the website, TaNaChTalk.com, TaNaCh TaNaCh.com. Thank you once again for your time and for supporting TaNaCh Talk. Shalom.
And Genesis 17:19, and God said, Sarah your wife shall bear you a son indeed, and you shall call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. It doesn't mean one person. It's clearly talking about the progeny that comes from him. All of his descendants, not one person. Again, they're going to want to read this as seed singular. In speaking of seed, he means only one person who can only be Jesus. They're giving it a spin. They're not taking it at face value, which in a lot of other instances, the word seed of a woman, they're specifically talking about a woman, is a whole bunch of progeny and not just one person. Genesis 13:69, I will make your seed as the dust of the earth. So all I can say is I hope that answered his question. There is somebody, and I can't remember where it is, I should have written it down, who is talking about DNA and making the statement that DNA can prove somebody is Jewish. No, it can't. But there are two things that you have to understand about DNA tests. First and foremost, the DNA can tell you all about your ancestors. It cannot tell you about you. So just because a person says that their genetics is 50% Jewish or whatever, doesn't make that person a Jew. However, what it does is it means it tells you where to look. It tells you, it gives you the places to look to find out more information about your ancestors, and to see if your mother's was Jewish. Because then you have a potential of being able to prove that your ancestry through your mother was Jewish. But just the DNA alone tells you only about your ancestors and tells us nothing about you, but it might help you look in specific places to find out about your specific ancestry, not a generic thing. Your mother's father Jewish, your father's mother Jewish, might give you a 50% DNA being Jewish. But that doesn't matter, because your mother's mother wasn't Jewish. And that's how Jews... See, you got to remember something. Jews are a nation, and every nation has the right to its own definition, to define for itself who is a citizen of that nation, a member of that people, and to decide the process of naturalization to become a citizen of that people, of that nation. So Jewish law counts. Nobody cares about any individual's opinion. And Jewish law comes through the mother. But finding the DNA might help you learn where to look to be able to prove your ancestry through your mother's mother, whatever.
Right.
By the way, when Sharon Lee, not trust giving some lab my DNA, so they have a DNA and they give your results to an insurance company, and the DNA says something to the effect of, you might have some weird illness in your DNA, and so because they found out your DNA and it indicates this weird illness, won't insure you. Yeah, I kind of hesitate to do a DNA test for me personally. So, it's not that I'm paranoid and don't trust the government, but...
You're paranoid and don't trust the government?
Well, I don't trust businesses.
Yeah.
Especially health insurance companies.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Right.
Health insurance companies can get real sleazy.
Right.
I'm sorry, but I know what the law says. I know what they're supposed to share and what they're not supposed to share, but all it takes is one leak.
Right. So on the same topic,
I don't know I don't know the protections they have, how long it'll last, and all it takes is one person who wants to make a lot of money by selling it to the insurance companies.
So on the same topic,
but I hope you're right, Zahara.
Rabbi, can you hear me? Rabbi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me loud and clear, or is it just coming through like very faint?
Well, it's kind of muffled, but I can still hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. So Michael Martell brought up 2 Kings. I'm sorry. One person asked, "How do you know which tribe you're from?"
Basically, you don't. Okay, every family has their own tradition. My family's tradition is that we are Levites, descendants of Levi. But in the genetic studies that I have read, look, there's in terms of tribal affiliation, there is Kohanim, descendants of Aaron, the brother of Moses, which is a subset of the tribe of Levi, and there are Levites themselves. Okay, all the other tribes, not that clear. Okay, not always that clear. 80% of those people studied, which is not everybody, obviously, but 80% of those people studied who claimed to be Kohanim, priests, were correct. They all seem to have the genetic markers for a single ancestor going back 3,000, 3,500, whatever it is, years. So there's a lot of validity, but for 80%. For the other 20%, not so much. My congregation used to have a symposium on the Anusim. There's about 9 different epithets, names for this group of people. Marano, which is not a nice term, crypto Jews, descendants of crypto Jews. But we used to have a symposium, and every year we would get the creator, the founder of Family Tree DNA, one of the first DNA groups to study this stuff, talk about new findings in genetic studies. And maybe they've gotten better, I don't know. But what he said back then is that 80% were found to be true, but that means 20% of those claiming to be Kohanim were not accurate. Did not have any of the science bear out their claim of being Kohanim. So, when the Messiah comes, well, everything will get settled. But right now, it's not that. What's the word? I don't know what the word is. You get the first Aliyah for the honor of having the first person to be called up to read from the Torah. Not a whole lot of other differences. Receiving the payment for Pidyon Haben. Okay, there's not a whole lot of necessary things now, but eventually there will be, and at that time everything will be, straightened up on who's which tribe. I want to go to 9:03 p.m. Lalix Suchomel. I'm mispronouncing your name, I apologize. But at 9:03, Lalix writes, I bought and downloaded the lesson or activity book to start the Hebrew lessons on your web. I would like to know how or when I can start the classes. Okay, the activity book, the workbook, is to practice reading out loud Hebrew. And you should also have access to the video that we made, which I call the key to the workbook, which is me reading every single word on every single page, so you can check to see if you're pronouncing it out loud correctly. But that workbook is not a part of some classes that are to begin, is to enable each person who downloaded it to be able to practice their Hebrew and check their reading out loud with the key to the video, which I call the key to the workbook. So, Lalix, I hope that explains what that's for, and I hope that doesn't disappoint you. I will tell you that I'm talking with William about making videos on translation, on grammar. Not my favorite activity, but, I've been asked before about teaching, Hebrew grammar. There are plenty of other people who are already teaching Hebrew grammar, right, as far as that goes. biblical Hebrew grammar.
Yeah, we're actually doing that with Gabriel Sanders every
Exactly.
week.
So,
We try to stick with every week, but we're missing a lot because of the holidays, and then
but you'll eventually catch up. But those videos are viewable on YouTube, right?
The ones I'm referring to you.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So, Alix, if you want to learn the Hebrew grammar, the grammar will not use the activity book. That was only to practice reading out loud. But I'm sure Rabbi Sanders has his own. Maybe he has a workbook, or maybe he has a book that he uses as a textbook for learning the biblical Hebrew grammar.
Guys, if you have any questions that have not been answered in the chat, now would be a good time to tag TaNaCh Talk and put your question in. And if we don't get anything here in just a few minutes, we'll probably go and wrap this up for a show.
A couple of comments.
Sure.
On some of the 92 Vanguard at 9:02 p.m. 92 Vanguard. If we look at Matthew, Mark, and Acts, we see the Jews, quote, rejecting the cornerstone, end of quote. And you also see that Christians expect the Antichrist or beast. When Matthew, Mark, Acts, whatever, talk about the Jews rejecting the cornerstone, they are taking a biblical verse and interpreting that cornerstone to be Jesus. But the verse itself is talking about the rejection of the Jewish people. So, in the Hebrew Scriptures, they're just taking it out of context, ignoring the fact that it originally refers to the Jewish people as God's cornerstone, upon which everything is built, and making it about Jesus instead by their misinterpretation of the original biblical verse. The tribes are not races. Jews are on every continent and every color, and I'd like to see anybody who can show me a half a dozen different verses in the Hebrew Scriptures where anybody really cares about the race. You have verses referring to people being black, okay, but it's not significant. It's a reference. The wife of Moses is Cushite. And for pointing this out, by the way, Miriam is stricken with leprosy. So race is a modern issue. It's not a biblical issue. In the ancient world, it was affiliation with the nation of the people of Israel.
Okay, question popped up. What is the Jewish view of Jeremiah 8:8? And let me see, that says...
Jeremiah.
How do you say we are wise and the law of the Lord is with us, though certainly in vain made he it. The pen of the scribes is in vain.
Okay, so does that mean every scribe, the pen of everybody who writes, is in vain? In other words, how you want to take this out of the context in which it appears, and you want to apply it to all the Jews everywhere, all the scribes, or maybe Jeremiah was explicitly talking about the pen of scribes for evil people who are, misrepresenting it.
I actually thought he was referring to, let me close that. I actually thought he was referring to, God gave a set of rules or guidances through the prophets or the scribes, and the people are ignoring them, which would make their writings in vain. It's like putting up a stoplight and no one stops at it. They put the stoplight there in vain.
You have to remember
what I thought that was about.
You have to remember the saying: a text taken out of its context leaves nothing but a con.
Oh, that's what it was, right? The con.
A con taken out of its context leaves nothing but a con.
Text taken out of
text away from the word context, all you're left with is a con.
Got it. Right.
And so, hey, you want to interpret this any way you want to? Go right ahead. Okay?
Right.
But the fact remains, that's not what Jeremiah was talking about.
Right. That's funny. Christo said Jeremiah 8:8 can also very easily be referring to the New Testament.
Yeah, really.
That's funny. It's prophecies, right? That's good. Awesome. Let's see. Can you explain the reoccurring theme? Hold on, let me switch screens. Can you explain the reoccurring theme of transgressing by wine in the transgressing by wine in the Bible, and whether or not it's literal
What
or
does it mean to
spiritual wine?
transgress by wine? Does that mean drunkenness? Is he talking about drunkenness and or alcoholism?
Yeah, that's a good question. Huh.
I'm. Give me a biblical verse so I know what you're explicitly referring to,
Jared.
I'm not.
Jared Moore, can you reword that question to make it something we can all understand? Thank you.
And give us a specific verse in the Bible where it talks about transgressing by wine.
Okay, 9:10 p.m. Track the one. Lucifer said he'll be like the Most High. I think he accomplished it through Christianity, the mythological creation of Jesus. Huh.
Where did Lucifer speak? Where did Lucifer say he'll be like the Most High? I don't remember anywhere in the Bible a reference to a Lucifer except in forgot the prophet, where Lucifer is the direct translation of the morning star, and it's Venus.
Okay, Isaiah 14:12 maybe. Let's see.
Okay, Isaiah 14.
I'm just pulling that up. That may not be it.
Yes, you're right. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations?
And it says, I will exalt you. I will be like the Most High. Something right there.
For thou hast said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Okay.
I will ascend above the heights of clouds. I will be like the Most High.
Right. Notice that this is talking, as it specifically says in verse 4, Isaiah 14:4, that you shall take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how has the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased? The king of Babylon was defeated by Persia. And so this is the defeat of Babylon, and it's referring to how this king, mighty and great and exalted, was brought low. And the image there is like the morning star, which is Venus, which is on the west as the sun rises in the east. And as the sun rises, what happens? The sun doesn't rise, the earth moves, and it makes it look like the sun is rising, but it also makes it look like Venus is dropping below the horizon, like into the ground, like into the earth. And so the image that Isaiah is portraying here, okay, is one of this king of Babylon who was brought low. And then you have the verses 14:9, not a great translation. Hell, Sheol, from beneath is moved to meet you at your coming. So because it makes it look like Venus, representing the king of Babylon, is brought low beneath the horizon, it's the image is that the people in the earth, the deceased, are rising up to meet this king of Babylon as he is brought beneath the horizon. Okay. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? It's making the analogy between the king of Babylon, who was high up on his throne, to being brought low. But it's not really about the devil. It's not about the Satan. It's not about anything that Christian gives it the image of being. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, this is Jane Jones, who is talking about the word Hallel in Isaiah 14. But that's not hell. The word Hallel there doesn't mean hell. Okay. I'm trying to find it in the actual Hebrew. Let's see. It's going to take me too long to do that. It really is using the word Sheol. And it means the unknown. Believed by many to be the same root as Sha'al or Sho'el, to question. So Sheol becomes the unknown. Here it is. Isaiah 14:12. According to what's his name, Strong, Hillel is the morning star. I forgot exactly what the word Lucifer means. And as I recall, I think Jesus himself is referred to as Lucifer, the morning star, in the New Testament. But Hillel does not mean hell. Light bearer. Lucifer, bearer of light. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I've been on
That's okay.
phone call. I couldn't shake there for a minute.
Okay.
So I'm supposing that that is going to be a wrap. I had a question on. I just noticed in Facebook Messenger, but it looks too complicated to read through to come up with a quick source of a question.
Maybe we'll do it next week.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, that's from Scott Williams on Facebook. So okay, yeah, let's try to do that next week then. Okay, well that sounds good, Rabbi. I appreciate your time. Thank you for tuning in.
I appreciate doing this. I love doing this.
Be sure to hit that like button and turn on notifications. You have to turn on all notifications, otherwise you'll miss certain things. And we'll see you next week. Be sure to share these videos with your friends as well. Rabbi, we will see you again, same time, same place, Hashem willing, next week. Take care,
Absolutely.
everybody. Take care, everybody. Shalom. Bye.
Hello, my dear friends. Hope this message finds you well. If you like the way this channel is going, and the channel has been a blessing to you, please consider supporting the channel by going to the website, TaNaChTalk.com. TaNaChTalk.com. Thank you once again for your time and for supporting TaNaCh Talk. Shalom.
חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה